ladies and gentlemen, and we're delighted to be joined over the phone by Professor Dr. Zakaria Fouad, professor at the National Research Center. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Zakaria, the Egyptian government signed the new project worth of $6.2 million with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, the European Union, and the embassies of Denmark and Switzerland, as well as the African Climate Foundation. Now, how do you see the significance of this funding to the implementation of the upcoming conference COP27 that will be taking place in Sharm el-Sheikh in November?
Well, the importance of the international cooperation with Egypt and other international program, UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and also European Union, which we consider Egypt is a representative of the African continent in this conference.
Yeah.
Also, it reflects Egypt's pivotal role and how these international institutions realize the importance of Egypt and the importance of the conference success in Egypt in Sharm el-Sheikh. And it excites of the renewable manner and recommendations and the mechanisms that can be implemented to reduce the side effect and dangers of the climate change as a global issue in various sectors, in agricultural sector, health sector, tourism sector, and other sectors in all developed and developing countries at the same time.
Sir, COP27 is the world's most important conference on climate change. How do you see the preparations being done so far in this regard?
Yes, actually all matters related to the holding of the conference were prepared and prepared in the best conditions through the participation of all ministers and agencies in the cooperation with civil society and the institutions and NGOs also working in the field of the climate change. In partnership with the private sector also play an important role in this issue. In view of the importance of this conference, it will prepare for its receptions of all guests from all countries of the worldwide. Developed and developing countries in the same time.
The project will support Egypt's COP27 presidency and its endeavors to implement the Paris Agreement through initiatives in several priority areas. Now, how do you see the implementation of the Paris Agreement so far?
Indeed, in a few words, the conference will seek to implement the recommendations of the all previous climate conference, especially the one held in Paris in 2015, and the subsequent conference, because all countries focus about the COP27 will be held in Egypt.
How has climate change negatively affected the African continent, the greatest bearer of climate change and impact so far?
Yeah, it is a very good question. Because climate change has negatively affected many sectors in African countries. Because almost African countries is developing countries, especially with regard of food security, agriculture, and various areas of environment as a whole, as well as the health sector. And because the African environment is fragile and negative impacts was clear, and also increase year by year for the increase of the poverty, food insecurity activated by the climate change.
Sir, how are African countries supposed to adhere to their climate pledges amid the tens of economic hardships it's going through?
In this issue, it must be taken into account that the issue of climate change is an unfair issue, because and thus responsible for the accused for the result of the negative effects, and because the developed countries and the industrial activities which lead for the large amount of carbon emission and other global gases, causes of the global warming, and all of them causes of climate change are the major industrialized countries, such as the United States of America, China, and European Union, for example.
Yeah.
And these countries most negatively affected by climate change
Yes.
in the developing countries, not in the developed countries, including African countries. Therefore, those industrialized countries should be support African and the developing countries through granting and transferring technology and transferring information, such as the Green Climate Fund, to become more able to adapt and mitigate of climate change issue and be more resilient for the climate change. Yes.
Sir, have the developed economies been adhering themselves to their climate pledges and promises to help African nations to overcome the impact of climate change?
Indeed, so far, these pledges have not been adhered to, and we hope that the COP27 will be held in Egypt and the climate change conference, which will be held in Egypt, will achieve clear mechanisms and implementing these pledges and this implementation for the advanced economic towards the developing countries and especially in the African countries, because Egypt is a representative of all African countries in this conference.
Sir, how do you view Egypt's vital role in developing energy transition initiatives?
Okay. It has a vital and a key role of the developing initiatives for the transformation in the field of energy to the use of renewable energy such as solar energy and wind energy, and it has an implement plan in this field. One of the huge projects in this regard is the Bintan Solar Energy mega project in Aswan Governorate in Egypt, and the other projects, which reflects the political leaderships in Egypt interest in the issue of the renewable energy to preserve the environment and safe environment and face global challenges in the field of conventional energy production.
Yes. Sir, renewable energy sources represent 20% of the energy mix, and the country is working on increasing it to reach 42%. How could that be achieved?
First of all, I think it's more than 20%. Nowadays, maybe 22% and more. Indeed, this can be achieved by following upon the plan seed in this matter. And we find that the state policies are growing forward towards achieving this goal for 40 or more than 40% or more in the near future, and well studied and applied scientific manner in mega projects in Egypt for the solar and wind energy in the same time.
Sir, how do you see the world countries' activities and achievements with regards to climate action?
We hope that, especially focus in COP27 in Egypt, to how to implement it for the agreement between developed and developing countries to avoid any side effect in all countries for developed and developing countries at the same time. So, when we start to a critical fund, such as the Climate Fund and the Green Climate Fund, we can do that together to save the environment issues, especially in the energy sector.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Professor Dr. Zakaria Fouad, Professor at the National Research Center. Many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, with this we come to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching. Again, stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.